What's going on? Back again, and right now I'll be sharing with you guys how to optimize and revolutionize your conditioning training. So if you guys have been following this channel for a while, you know that I've been talking about all the benefits inside and outside the gym, but that's not what today's episode is all about. Right now I'll be diving more into the specifics of conditioning, and not with stuff that you can start applying in the next couple weeks or months. I'm talking about stuff you can start applying right on the spot for your next conditioning session, for the next time you train conditioning, maybe after your weight training session. So there's so much bang for your buck more that you could get into your conditioning. And what do I mean by that? I'm talking about better posture, better recovery, better references, more variability with the tips I'm about to give you. So let's get into it. So the first step to optimizing and revolutionizing your conditioning is to take your performance to a level far greater than what it is right now. There's a lot of people out there who don't do any conditioning at all. There's another group of people who actually do the conditioning, but when it's done, it's in such a half-assed manner. They're so pre-exhausted, so tired, that they're just not really getting the benefits out of it. And this isn't going to be much motivation for them because they're not going to be getting much results from their conditioning, so they might actually end up being like the first group. Then you have the third group of people who actually do the conditioning. They know the benefits, they do it consistently, and they're always chasing performance. They want to outdo others, they want to outdo themselves. And I'm personally more with the third person because I think that one, it's going to keep things a lot more fun, more interesting, and you're not maintaining, you're striving to get better. You're going to be burning a lot of calories and stuff of that nature, but you're also going to be building a lot of muscle if you're doing the right conditioning exercises too. So to get more into specifics, let's say you're doing farmer walks in the gym, or let's say you're doing sandbag carries. If you start off with, let's say, an 100-pound sandbag and you're doing sets of 5 to 10 laps, you can't just keep using that same sandbag and expect different results, because then you're just going to be teaching yourself how to maintain, and there's no adaptation. There's nothing to really grow from if you're doing the same thing over and over again. You're just maintaining, like I just said. So you want to strive on getting that sandbag a lot heavier. You want to strive to get at least a body weight sandbag for 5 to 10 laps. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you want to be lifting a 200-pound sandbag. If you're maybe an 140-pound female, strive to get that 140-pound sandbag. If you're doing, let's say, farmer walks in the gym, strive for the heaviest dumbbells, or even invest in some handles. You always want to improve performance. Maybe you could do some trap bar carries, whatever the case is. That's the point I'm trying to make. So you never want to be stagnant with your conditioning. You always want to up the weight. And if it's not a weight exercise, let's say it's about sprints, you want to sprint in the least amount of time possible. If we're talking about jump roping, you want to have harder variations. You want to do maybe single leg, double unders. You always want to strive for more. So the second way to optimize your conditioning even more is to start doing more reverse sled drags. And the reason why is because this is a very unique exercise that'll most likely give you a lot of what you don't already have. Most lifters, most of what they do in the gym is always going forward. Squat, bench, deadlift, split squat, whatever the case is. And the reverse sled drag is an exercise that will, one, give you posterior rib cage expansion, while also giving you a new reference to the ground with your heels. So this will counteract a lot of the forward action that's going, and it'll add more balance and variability into your training. Now I understand that not everybody has access to a turf at their gym. Maybe they don't even have access to a gym right now because they're probably closed, but you could find alternatives. You can maybe make your own sled. You could just use it in a park, whatever the case is. But if that's not feasible enough for you, if it's not practical, then the next best bet is to start doing reverse lunges. So when you do your lunges, you could do it reverse on the way back. And this brings me on to tip 3, is that you could mimic the benefits of the reverse sled drag by incorporating certain principles and methods that I started doing myself. So if you're doing, let's say, a farmer walk or a sandbag carry, if you're walking forward, you could walk backwards on the way back. And I actually had somebody ask me that question, why are you walking backwards? And the reason why is because I'm getting some of the similar benefits that are going to mimic a reverse sled drag. So I could have easily walked forward, then walked around a cone and walked forward again. But I understand that my heels need new references. I understand that I'm getting posterior rib cage expansion depending on the exercise. And I want to mimic the reverse sled drag as much as I could. But if you have the best conditions possible and you have access to reverse sled drag, make sure you're using it at least once a week. So fourthly, let's talk about oblique training. I was just telling you guys about the farmer walk. You could start incorporating one-arm farmer walks to take your obliques to the next level. These are like a walking side plank on steroids. You could start loading these really heavy and you have the whole gait cycle incorporated as well. So I actually got this exercise from Brian Alsrew. He does his with his arms by his side like this, or his arm by his side in like he's doing a lateral raise. And you could do that variation as well, but you could also have phases in your training where the other arm is just alternating, because it's going to have great transference and carryover to the gait cycle in athletics as well. So you can start incorporating the one arm farmer walk. I've also seen other strongman competitors do offloading or offset farmer walks, where they'll have it a lot heavier in one hand and a lot less heavy in one hand. So for example, maybe they're doing 200 pounds one hand, 100 pounds in the other. This is going to tax the obliques in another fashion as well. So if you want to take your conditioning to the next level, if you want to spice things up, if you're very bored of oblique training, give the one arm farmer walk a try. Number 5, let's talk about the frontal plane. So I just spoke about how if you're always going forward, it's no good. You want to have more variability by adding more exercise in reverse to complement and counteract some of that action. But you still have to understand that this is only the sagittal plane, which is a great place to start, by the way. But if you're always only going forward and going back, and you're an athlete, if you're just a recreational lifter, you might be able to get away with it. But if you're an athlete, you're going in a multitude of different directions. Maybe you play basketball, maybe you're a fighter, whatever the case is. You don't want to be limited with your planes of motion. So that's why it's also smart to have some frontal plane work. So a good example of this would be a lateral sled drag. So once again, you have to have access to a sled for this. But if not, it's not the end of the world, because there's still other exercises you could do within the frontal plane. A good exercise would be, instead of doing a step up, you could do something like a lateral step up. This will give you more of that lateral movement and that frontal plane variability that you're looking for. 6, let's talk about frequency. So when it comes down to conditioning, you have different groups of people who structure the routines in different ways. You have certain people who do the conditioning at the end of the session. Then maybe you have another group of people who have a dedicated conditioning day or two. Now, if you have 2 dedicated conditioning days, that's great, but most people don't. Most people will only have 1 conditioning day if they happen to do the conditioning. So in my personal opinion, I find you'd be best off, if you're trying to really take your conditioning to the next level, to end each session with 1 conditioning exercise. So maybe you have your upper body day, finish off with some farmer walks. Maybe you have your lower body day, finish off with some sled drags or reverse lunges. And then at the end of the week, you could have a dedicated conditioning day. And from a frequency standpoint, this is great, because every time you walk into the gym, you're always doing some form of conditioning. And at the end of the week, you have the whole conditioning day to yourself. So you could do, let's say, some sandbag carries, farmer walks. You could do some kettlebell swings. You could add some throws, sprints, all the stuff I've been showing you in the past. And this will give you that 4 times a week frequency for conditioning. All right, so lastly, we can't finish off the video without talking about rest periods, because one of the main reasons why we do conditioning is to lower our rest periods. That's why we want to increase our work capacity. We want to get inside and out the gym faster. We want to have more volume in, and conditioning is a great way to do that. But if you're taking these really long rest periods when you're doing your conditioning, it kind of defeats the whole purpose. And if we're talking about specificity, it suits it very well, because if you're going to be taking low rest periods on anything, it's going to be conditioning. I could understand if you're in the gym, you're doing heavy sets of squats, deadlifts, or presses, and you want to take maybe an extra 30 seconds or an extra minute or 2 just to recuperate from that set. I could understand that perspective. But if we're talking about conditioning, the whole point for the most part is to become more fit. It's to have lower rest periods. So it just suits it very well. So I like to cap it at 1 minute. I rarely ever rest more than 1 minute for my sets of sandbag carries, farmer walks, all that stuff. And if you have to lower the weight, then so be it. But keep in mind that to get more results from the conditioning, you also want to follow tip 1 by improving your performance. So you want to still improve your performance with the low rest periods, and that's when you're going to get the best of both worlds for conditioning, while simultaneously applying the rest of the tips. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Let me know if you learned anything. Let me know down below what you learned in this video, and see you guys next time.